Located in between Baltimore and the nation's capital, Atholton Adventist Academy is a place that we hold very dear in our hearts.
Atholton is like home. Everybody is family here, and I always have a friend to talk to.
The teachers always give of their time, even outside of school, to help us improve as students.
But Atholton is missing one thing. For over 20 years, Atholton has had only 9th and 10th grades. That meant that everybody had to transfer to a new school to finish their high school education.
So even as we excitedly began our high school journey, we knew that our time at Atholton would be cut short. In 2 years, we would be separated from each other, and this nagged at us constantly. We loved Atholton, and we wanted to finish high school here. Expanding to 12th grade has been a long-standing dream for the Atholton community. Knowing this and being filmmakers, we wanted to use our filmmaking skills to help further this dream. During our time at Atholton, we heard little snippets of Atholton's history, and those stories intrigued us.
Could investigating Atholton's past give us a blueprint for moving forward?
We embarked on a 3-year journey to find out. Here is what we discovered.
It's the spring of 1957, a time of optimism and growth in rural central Maryland. Over the next decades, however, this land would be transformed into a thriving city.
The land around here was just weeds.
It was not really a city, but it grew into a city while we were there.
At this time, a group of Seventh-day Adventist believers has come together with a vision to create a community where their children can grow.
The first thing was the school. It wasn't a church that started and then a school. And it was more important for the kids to have a Christian education than it was to have a church.
Before they could act on this dream, they needed land, a place to build.
Mr. Snook owned all this land. He was a farmer, a builder, a developer per se.
He owned the land and he donated it to the church and to the conference.
Generous, godly man.
Now they were able to start to build their school, beginning an era of expansion and growth.
The first building was the 4 classrooms and the bathrooms. These front 2 classrooms had partition doors that opened up, and that was the church. You had a lot of tradespeople when the school was built. Not everybody in the church had money, but they had time and they volunteered.
There's a walkway that goes back to the catacombs, and that was all dirt. We had to excavate that, so the women went in there and dug out.
In addition to the 4 classrooms and catacombs, they also constructed a gym. The gym became a space for the community to come together.
Everything centered around this little nucleus, the church and the school.
Most Saturday nights, people didn't really just sit around doing nothing. We had talent nights. We had Christmas parties.
And we played games in the gym. There'd be skating.
Everything was there. 8th grade graduation, weddings, and church every week.
Church was the center hub for social activities.
However, they hadn't fulfilled their full dream. While they had built a home for the school and invested in the combined church and school community, they still lacked one major thing.
We needed a church building.
Pastor Gager, when we started on the church raising funds, he was preparing to go for a trip to the Middle East. So he'd saved some money. He donated whatever he'd saved. That kind of kick-started it.
The church members gathered every Sunday. People would bring food and they'd feed the workers. It was very exciting.
At long last, they finally finished. On March 22, 1975, they dedicated their new sanctuary.
When we moved in, you could look around and see the stained glass windows that you'd made. It was beautiful. It was such an accomplishment.
It was what we did. We all did it together.
At this point, the Atholton Church and School had built a complete complex, providing for all the aspects of the community: education, worship, and fellowship. Yet, as the years passed and they continued to grow in number, they were faced with a new challenge.
In September of 1997, there was already a need for more space.
We couldn't have more than 20 kids in a room, and we already had 24.
There had been some efforts to try and build some momentum towards expanding.
Everyone was just always talking about the school's going to grow. We're going to build.
And they did grow. The church and school approved a 2-phase expansion, which would include 15,000 square feet of additional space made up of 8 new classrooms, a new library, and school office spaces.
The new construction represented, multi-million-dollar project above and beyond the regular operating budgets of either the church and the school. We never had a $1 million gift. The congregation wasn't made up of those who were in a position to make those kinds of gifts.
And so they set out to get the job done. They had done this before, and they were going to do it again.
We would have the Sunday work bees. Some would come and they would bring food and provide food for the workers. Others had skills, and they brought their experience and expertise together.
You could basically come here and see every weekend, sometimes even after work, they would come here and they would continue to work.
There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that were involved from the church and the community.
The building project was spearheaded by a church member named Enos Levy, a lifelong builder.
He had no college degree. He was retired.
He was here working with his hands, coming up with ideas to fix engineering problems. The engineers couldn't figure out a way to get the elevator to pass code as far as the ramp was concerned. He came up with this idea of the steps off to the left and a ramp that went up and around behind it.
The county inspector says, you can't do that. You can't get the angles right.
We sat there and drew all that out on the floor, full scale, and did all the measurements and stuff to figure that all out.
The inspector said it's impossible.
He was amazed and come out there and checked. He says, yeah, good.
During this time, another leader emerged on the school side, Principal Marilyn Peak.
If you were to do an autopsy in her, you would find that her organs looked like Atholton. She was the Atholton Adventist Academy.
I'm a project type of person. I'd put on my jeans and my t-shirt, and when school was out, I'd go work on the project.
She became a vital voice in the casting of vision for the school.
There was a time where they did run out of money.
We had the phase 2 kind of done, the outer shell, but we didn't have windows. Enos was convinced they were too expensive because they were $600 per window, and there were 17 windows plus the front doors.
They didn't always get along, but they both had the common goal of wanting to get that building finished.
And I said, I'll give you the first $600, and I'll find 17 people to give $600. We're not taking pledges. This is cash money. One of our church members was walking down the hall, and she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm selling windows. She came back and she said, oh, Marilyn, you know I cannot tell you no. Of course I'll buy a window. And some people heard about it, and they actually put money in for the windows, and I'd never even ask them about it.
By the spring of 2007, the building was complete. The community, under the leadership of Enos Levy and Marilyn Peak, had accomplished their goal.
The two of them together got that addition built.
However, they had also incurred a significant debt, something they never wanted. Paying that off would prove to be as daunting as completing the construction.
There was debt that was carried for many years.
Until we paid that debt off, our hands were tied on doing any other expansion, any other projects.
I wouldn't leave Atholton until the mortgage was paid for.
Monthly payments alone would never resolve the issue. A significant push was needed.
In 3 years, we paid off $600,000. The school contributed about $300,000, and the church members raised the other $300,000.
So it worked out well. We were able to burn the mortgage 6 months before I left.
And with this, the community came to the close of yet another era of expansion and growth, free from debt and able to look to the future.
The new space allowed Atholton, with conference approval, to add grades 9 and 10.
It started very small. I think there was less than 10 kids in my class in the first year, so we were a tight-knit group.
We hired teachers who had secondary majors so that we were covered for all the high school stuff.
The Junior Academy gave Atholton a new vision for the future, but it also highlighted an issue that needed to be addressed.
One of the things that really concerned me as an Adventist educator is when kids go to an Adventist school and then they finish 8th grade and then they don't go on to an Adventist academy.
While the 9th and 10th grade program did retain a few students, most left along with their families. The solution was clear: expand to grades 11 and 12. Yet this wasn't a path Atholton could follow without first seeking an approval from the organizational hierarchy.
We were told no quite a few times, but parents would continually say, "What are the possibilities?"
Our experience was within this context. The dream of becoming a full academy was always mentioned, but it never became a reality.
When she hired my dad, Mrs. Peak told him that I would definitely be able to finish high school here. However, by the time I started high school, that promise was looking pretty bleak.
All the staff were like, well, this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we've been talking about it for so long. I was telling parents there's absolutely no way that we were going to have an 11th grade.
In the spring of 2022, with the mortgage paid off and the school rebounding strong from COVID, Atholton moved to action. In a business meeting we attended, the official vote to pursue becoming a full academy was a resounding yes.
Everything happens in God's time and for His reasons, and it's not our job to question that. It's our job to just walk through the open doors.
For close to 3 years, Atholton has overcome many challenges in pursuit of our dream, but hurdles persist. Funding is uncertain, the approval process complex and lengthy. Yet,
He hasn't slammed the door in our face yet, so as long as He doesn't slam the door, we're just going to keep walking through.
Currently, Atholton is partnering with Griggs International Academy to offer grades 11 and 12 on our campus. We have once again maxed out all the available space and have launched a campaign to raise $1 million to expand our campus further. This spring, we will graduate from Griggs as the class before us did and as the class behind us will too. Although we won't receive an Atholton diploma, we will still be able to celebrate in our own church and in our own school.
We've been a part of this push to make Atholton a full academy. As student leaders, we've advocated for expansion, helped with the fundraising, and even recruited new students. Still, we'll graduate before seeing the dream fully realized. We started this project with the idea that our past history could guide our goals for the future. Along the way, we found a blueprint that can guide us. This blueprint is the power of a legacy, the sum of collective vision and individual sacrifice.
It starts with a dream. It starts with people coming together and desiring something more, something better.
Growing up, I feel like everyone was just always talking about the school's gonna grow, we're gonna build. This sort of dreaming was just kind of the space that everyone was always in.
A simple dream becomes a vision. Individual sacrifice is what turns that vision into reality.
I knew that it was going to be a little bit dirty. I knew it was going to be long, hard hours.
People literally showing up on the weekdays, dedicating their time to put up windows, to put up walls, to put in doors.
Each of us plays a role in shaping something that will outlive us. Legacy isn't nearsighted, rather it looks towards the future. It's the mentality of trusting in a vision and moving forward despite the uncertainty.
Each generation has a significant role to play. We can be thankful for each decade, each generation, and what they've contributed to making Atholton what it is.
Life is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The sacrifices of today build the communities of tomorrow. This isn't just about Atholton, it's about all of us. We choose to invest in the future because we know that we can change a community with our vision and effort. Our dreams, our time, our passions, they make an impact. The people in this film prove that. And now, it's our turn.